You ever see a grown man nearly break down because of a piece of paper? I did. I stood right there in the doorway, watching my mother's hands shake as she held that eviction notice. 40 years. For decades of hard work, rose bushes, birthdays, and late-night talks. About to be wiped away by a woman in a red suit who thought my parents were just too old, too tired, to fight back. What she didn't know was, my father had every detail documented. Her private emails weren't nearly as private as she believed, and that the quiet man in the gray suit behind my folks wasn't just their son. He was a federal judge, and he'd been waiting his whole life for a fight like this. If you've ever faced down an HOA or had a neighbor try to run you off your own land, you know the feeling. Leave a comment. You're not alone. That HOA president? She thought she'd won. She just started a war. Late afternoon sun filtered through our old wooden fence, turning the yard gold. My parents' yard. My mom, Rosalind, she's on her knees by the rose bushes. Snip, snip, snip. Same rhythm I'd grown up listening to. Smell of earth, sweat, a little joy. My father, Nolan, on the porch. Swing, reading glasses barely hanging on, history book balanced on his knee. The house, 247, Maple Street, standing behind them, white paint a little faded but still proud, like an old soldier that's seen it all and stayed standing. They built that life, piece by piece, one mortgage payment at a time. Helped neighbors move in, hosted block parties, strung up the lights every Christmas. Dad taught high school history until he retired 5 years ago, molded kids, gave them a backbone. Mom, for decades a nurse, bone-tired every night, but always found energy for us, for dinner, for homework. They believed if you worked hard and played by the rules, you got to keep what you built. Turns out, they were wrong. The day everything started, I was 12,200 miles away, up to my eyeballs in case files in D.C. My father said the sound of high heels on concrete made him look up from his book, and his gut just tightened. That was Karen Dalton, HOA president. Rolling up in a red suit, clipboard clutched like a weapon, acting like she owned the world. She called out, "Mrs. Brennan," in that voice, fake friendly, like sugar poured over broken glass. "Your rose bushes are in violation. They're 3 inches over the line." My mom startled, pruning shears slipping onto the grass, trying to make sense of the nonsense. "I planted those roses 20 years ago. They've always been there." "But Karen?" She's already scanning her clipboard, smirking. "Regulations updated last month. All residents received notice. Also, no permit for the railing. Repair you did last week. That's a $200 fine." Dad's trying to stay calm. "We didn't repair any railing." Karen just taps her pen. "Records don't lie, Mr. Brennan. You'll receive a citation." And then she spun on her heel, left my parents standing in the yard, looking like strangers in their own home. Here's what Karen didn't know. Our doorbell camera caught it all. In 20 minutes. Before her show, a guy from the board, Trent Callahan, pulled up, dabbed paint on our railing, snapped photos, drove away. Dad, after what happened with the mail last year, reviews the footage every night. He saw the whole setup, watched it 3 times, face getting harder each round. Saved it everywhere. They weren't just finding violations, they were making them. Inside, Mom and Dad sat in. Silence at the kitchen table, walls covered in family photos, diplomas, the whole story of their lives on display. Pictures of Dad's master's degree, Mom in her nurse's uniform, me in my judge's robes, grinning like a kid who can't believe his luck. My federal award from the DOJ tucked away, dusted every week by Mom, but never mentioned. Pride and humility, always hand in hand in that house. Then it all ramped up. 2 weeks later, HOA's noise officer showed up at 7 a.m., said our air conditioning was too loud. Never mind it was off. Fan blades dead still. Citation anyway. Mom lost her appetite. Dad's phone calls to the HOA went nowhere. They shut doors before he even knocked. 3 weeks in, Trent showed up drunk at our front door at 10 p.m., shouting loud enough for the neighbors. "This neighborhood isn't for people like you. You don't belong. I'm going to make sure you leave." Mrs. Ashford next door called the cops. Cops came, told Trent to go home. Then one cop turned to my dad, said, "You should try to get along with your neighbors." Like my parents were the problem. My father was documenting everything by then. Dates, times, every ugly word. "The law is the weapon of the powerless," he told Mom that night. He filled a whole notebook. Didn't realize he was building a case. What he also didn't know, I'd been building cases like this for years, putting people away for discrimination, for exactly this kind of corruption. But he called me at 2 a.m., voice cracking, asking for help. Said, "They're saying we forged the papers. They're calling us frauds. I don't know what to do. I need you to come home." I said, "Don't talk to them. Don't sign. Don't meet. I'll be on the first flight." Sitting there in the dark, looking at an old photo of me at 8, I realized my parents had given me everything. Now it was my turn. When I finally got home, everything was different. Same smells, same furniture, but heavy with dread. Mom thinner, Dad looking smaller than I'd ever seen. He showed me the documents, the timelines, the notes. Every manufactured violation, every email, every insult. The pattern was obvious. 3 families, all minorities, all targeted. They'd changed the rules 17 times in 6 months, each tweak aimed at people like us. And behind it all, a development company drooling for our land. Then a twist. A former board member, Duncan Hargrove, showed up out of the blue. Slipped my dad a USB drive. Internal emails, the smoking gun. "She's planning something big," he whispered. "You're the cornerstone. They want 5 properties for townhomes." I didn't realize what I was voting for. Don't trust the process. It's rigged. Emails showed it all. We need them gone by summer. Elderly owners. Easy to claim irregularities. Patience. Make it look organic. My mom's blood pressure shot up. Dad started losing weight. Mom couldn't even garden anymore. Her sanctuary felt like a trap. HOA doubled down. Formal hearing. Falsified documents. Threat to evict my parents in 30 days unless they could prove 40 years of honest living. Neighbors, even ones Dad had helped, started treating them like lepers. Whispered, stared, stopped talking. You want to know what isolation feels like? That's it, when the people you helped cross the street to avoid you. But the thing about my parents? They'd built their life on not giving up. Dad dug up every piece of paperwork from the attic. Mom dusted off memories. I compiled the evidence. We found allies, Mrs. Ashford, Duncan, the Gonzalez family that had been run out the year before. And I started making calls. FBI, DOJ, civil rights lawyers. Used every connection I'd built. At the hearing, the HOA president put on a show, PowerPoints, red circles, forensic signature analysis. Thought she'd humiliate us in front of the whole community. But I stood up, took the floor. "I'm Judge Fletcher Brennan, Federal Circuit. Here's the real documentation. Here's the timeline of every rule change. Here's the doorbell footage of your board faking violations. Here's the proof. You targeted minority families, working hand in glove with developers." FBI agents rolled in right on cue. The room went from smug to chaos in about 3 seconds flat. And justice? It was slow, but it landed like a hammer. The president, the accountant, the goon, every one of them faced charges: fraud, discrimination, embezzlement, elder abuse. Our neighbors watched as the whole story unraveled in court. My father testified, calm as a teacher at the blackboard. Mrs. Ashford told the truth. Duncan explained how corruption crept in. FBI agents laid out the money trail. In the end, the jury found them guilty on all counts. Sentencing was swift. The board president, 8 years. The accountant, 4. The thug, 2. The developer? Whole project dead, execs awaiting their own trials. What matters isn't just that we won. It's what came after. The HOA was rebuilt, transparent, fair, with people who actually cared. Neighbors who'd hidden came by to apologize, some with pies, some with just tears. Not all were forgiven. That was my parents' call. The Gonzalez family moved back. Mrs. Ashford became board president. The house, our house, wasn't just a home anymore. It was a statement. Painted fresh, garden blooming again, new brass numbers shining by the door. A bench out front, white roses in the sun. One evening, sitting on that porch with Dad, he looked out at the roses and said, "You know, I spent my life teaching about history, about justice. Never thought I'd be living it." I told him, "You prepared me for this, Dad. Everything I know about fighting back, I learned here." And he smiled. I was finally at peace. My daughter ran up, 3rd generation, wild and happy, laughing in the golden light. "Tell me the story about how you saved the house, Papa," she yelled. My dad hugged her close. "We didn't save it alone, sweetheart. We fought. We found help. We proved we belonged. If you're listening to this, and you've ever felt powerless, ever had someone try to steal what you built, remember, justice doesn't happen by accident. It takes standing up. Document everything. Find your allies. Use the tools, even when the system's against you. And when you're tired, and you think no one's coming, stand anyway. Family means showing up. Home means refusing to leave. That's how you build something that lasts. Now tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever stood up to an HOA or fought for your family's home? Drop your story below. Let's remind them, justice is built, one neighbor, one house, one fight at a time.